Hello, I'm Jonathan Charnes. Thank you for watching my video, the Dysfunctional FAA, Part 3. We're going to look at how inadequate maintenance has contributed to aircraft accidents. Case in point would be American Airlines on the 25th of May, 1979. Where a DC-10 loses an engine. It actually tore off the wing, plane stalled and crashed. National Transportation Safety Board said the probable cause was asymmetric stall in the ensuing roll of aircraft because of uncommanded retraction of left wing, outboard leading edge slats, and loss of stall warning and slat disagreement indication system resulting from maintenance-induced damage leading to number one engine and pylon assembly separating at a critical point during takeoff. The engine separated because maintenance was not performed properly. The mechanics did not follow the guidelines of the manufacturer and separate first the engine from the pylon, then the pylon from the engine. They removed everything at once with a forklift. That caused stress on the mounting bolts, and the stress had caused fatigue cracks, and after a while the bolts failed and engine separated. I will state that when an engine separates, in that case, it tears away the hydraulic lines, and hydraulic pressure is now no longer available to extend your leading edge slats. The slats are important in providing more lift during takeoff and also for preventing stalls. So when the engine tore away, there was a loss of lift and less stall protection, so the wing lost lift and dropped, and that was the end. The last set of accidents I'll discuss is where there was a lack of FAA oversight as a contributing factor, or FAA disregarding their own inspectors' warnings. Okay, case in point, Kogan Air Flight 3407, February 12, 2009. It stalled and crashed on approach to Buffalo. This was in instrument conditions with icing. The stick shaker went off, warning the captain that they were at too high an angle of attack. Proper procedure is to lower the nose by pushing the stick forward. Captain did the opposite. He pulled it back, stalling the plane and killing everybody in the crash. We might note that the Wall Street Journal tells us that this captain had failed three previous check rides. Kogan Air acknowledged that both pilots were not paying attention to their flight instruments. Furthermore, an FAA inspector who observed Kogan's operation on test flights in January of 2008, that was about 13 months before the crash. This was on test flights, had complaints about Hogan, and as with other previous FAA incident handlings with other inspectors who made complaints, the complaints were deferred, and this inspector and the other FAA inspectors were transferred somewhere else, or demoted. So it's like shooting the messenger of bad news. Well, let's look at the helicopter collision at Washington National Airport. I should say Reagan National Airport now, on January 29th, 2025. That is an American Airlines flight 5347 was struck by an Army helicopter. The helicopter was flying through the helicopter corridor, which had to be designed by a diversity, equity, inclusion imbecile. because they allowed to have the helicopter fly under aircraft approaching the runway with almost no vertical separation. You should have at least 500 feet vertical separation when one plane or aircraft flies under the other. As it is, when the helicopter is a half mile from the approach end of the runway, as it was at that time, and the aircraft is on a normal descent profile, the aircraft will also be at about 200 feet from the end of the runway, the same altitude as a helicopter. Actually, if he's on a 3.2 degree glide slope and he has 40 feet, then the glide slope takes him 40 feet above the threshold, he'll be at 208 feet. So that's almost nothing because you got 75 feet of air, normal air, in an altimeter. They're allowed and considered serviceable if you have plus or minus 75 feet of air. So that's a recipe for disaster. The tower reported over 15,000 loss of separation encounters between helicopters and planes at Reagan over a 3-year period. And they also reported over 85 near misses during that time period. A near miss is when it's a lot closer than lack of separation. All right, so the FAA basically transfers 3 of the tower people out of Reagan who warned them of the high risks that were occurring because of this helicopter encounter. The National Transportation Safety Board Director Jennifer Hamady said the FAA needs to take ownership for removing people in the tower for warning of safety risks. Again, they shoot the messenger of bad news. I also have a report on a door plug blowing out of a Boeing 737 MAX. On June 24th, 2025, the NTSB said the probable cause of the door plug blowout was partially caused by FAA being ineffective in ensuring Boeing addressed repetitive and systemic non-conformance issues associated with its parts removal process. Okay, and now we're going to look at why there's a lot of falsification of records in the air carrier industry. Pilots often hesitate to write up maintenance problems because that can possibly delay a flight or cancel a flight. See, both pilots and mechanics are required by regulation to write up all observed maintenance malfunctions. So if they're afraid that a flight's going to be delayed or canceled, they'll simply falsify a maintenance entry, or they won't make an maintenance entry to make the plane appear to be airworthy. Case in point, I've had a mechanic write for a generator failure, and this same generator failed six previous consecutive flights on the same airplane, and he simply said ops checks okay, cannot duplicate. Other entries say clean contacts, ops checks okay, okay, return for service. So most likely each one of those was a bogus entry that made the plane supposedly airworthy for flight. We had 2 other generators, but still, the work wasn't done right. Because there's, in my opinion, systemic falsification of records throughout the air carrier industry, All pilots and mechanics should have mandatory polygraph tests to verify that they have made all required maintenance entries and performed all work per the manufacturer's maintenance manual. There have been numerous instances in which pilots have been mentally unfit to fly an airplane. They've had psychological problems, and there's been several fatal accidents caused by this among air carriers. Some suicides where the pilots have deliberately crashed an airplane. Others where they might be operating a plane under the influence of a controlled substance. For this reason, I recommend each pilot, before each flight, be given a polygraph test by a psychologist to determine if he has any mental issues that might affect his abilities to perform his duties as pilot in command, or if he's under the influence of any controlled substance. The rights of privacy are trumped by the need for the flying public's safety. I urge you to contact your congressman and have him put pressure on the FAA to make these polygraph tests required. And also, they should make public all airline maintenance records. This should be online so anybody can see every maintenance entry that's been made for every air carrier's aircraft. That way you can kind of get an idea to see if the maintenance is being honestly performed. Or you can kind of judge if you see one air carrier with a lot of repeat failures of the same piece of equipment and what appear to be bogus maintenance entries. You might want to avoid them. Thank you.